In a video yesterday, I talked about a infinite money glitch at CEX where you could buy Phase Farm at Argos, 2 for 19 quid, so you'd get, 19.99. So for effectively £20, you'd get 2 games. Now, each one of those games trades in for £14 cash or £20 voucher at CEX, or did, which means that you'd spend £20 at Argos and you could make £28 cash or £40 voucher. It was an infinite money loop. Now, this happens all the time, realistically. The other day it was Dark Souls. At the minute it's Phase Farm. There's always some stuff, always things coming and going. You just got to be on the lookout. I'm pretty lucky in that people point things out to me. Like this Phase Farm one, it was a member of staff at a CEX that told me about this and told me to get in on it because, why not? And I made a video on TikTok about it and on Instagram Reels. And check this out. So on TikTok, the Infinite Money Glitch video did 34,000 views. On Reels, it did 56,000 views. What's that? About 90,000 views. And now, all of a sudden, today, the prices on Phase Farm have been updated and changed. I wonder why that might be, CEX Corporate, whoever's in charge of that. Whoever's in that. I wonder why that might be. Hello. I see you. Anyway, we just hit 75,000 followers over on Instagram, which is also pretty cool. Nice to see all the numbers ticking up. I'm currently in the process of tidying my room. It probably doesn't look it, but it is much tidier than you would have seen in previous videos. I've just had my lunch. I'm home alone today. My partner is out. Actually, here's a fun one for you. My partner is out with work. She has to go to her work office maybe like twice a month, and it's in Solihull. And there's a CEX in Solihull. I've never been to it because I have never had a reason to go to Solihull because I don't work at the place she works. But whenever she goes to Solihull and she goes out into the town for a lunch, I have her visit the CEX there to go and pick up some stuff if there is anything. And thankfully, I've had her pick up a few Blu-rays because there was one in particular that we have been really struggling to find that would complete an entire franchise. One entry of a franchise in particular that I've just not been able to get on Blu-ray, and we've managed to get it apparently, so that's a win. Yeah. By the way, if you guys are new here, if you haven't already, if you're not already subscribed, drop me a subscribe. I'm looking for 100,000 subs in the next year or so. It's like 75,000 more. Feasible. This is an interesting one. Why does CEX seem to do pretty well in a time where all other gaming stores are either dead or dying? It's because their entire business model is an infinite money loop. Think about it. The entirety of their stock comes from people. They give you less than they sell it for. They are always, no matter what, making money. There's very little risk involved with CEX. The majority of the risk that CEX have is just the turnaround of the stock on the shop floor and how long it takes to move things along, and the risk to the stock in terms of being stolen. It's one of them where they're always winning no matter what. It's pretty smart. That combined with the fact that they are now basically the only way of getting physical media, they're winning. It used to be that they were the only way of getting second-hand stuff that's older. Say, for example, it's 2024 now. If you want to go and buy a PS3 or PS4 game, you ain't getting them in most shops. You're just not, even if they do still sell games. God forbid you want a PS1 or a PS2 game. CEX is basically your only choice. It's also one of the more well-refined systems, because sometimes people use cash converters as some sort of CEX equivalent, but I just don't think that they are, because it's just never as well determined whether or not things are going to be where, and the systems behind the scenes in terms of the websites and such just are not as foolproof as CEX are. There doesn't seem to be a way of going onto like cash converters, typing in a game and working out which cash converters in what town that's going to be in, and knowing full well that it's going to be there, and all that sort of thing. There is always going to be a massive portion of people that play things physically. Because while things continue to go more and more online, you've got to remember that a lot of people just don't have very good internet. A lot of people that buy physical games or DVDs, physical media in general, are either really, really young or really, really old. Walk into a CEX in the middle of the day, it's very rare you'll see people like my age in there. Because the majority of people my age are probably, or my age, say like 20 to 25, for example, when I say my age. It's because people our age are typically buying games digitally these days. The majority of people in CEX that I see buying physical games, or physical media in general, whether it's DVDs or not, are older people or parents buying it for children because it's a much cheaper way of getting games. For example, my sister has got 7 children. 4 of them are lads, and all of them are now gamers. CEX is one of the cheapest possible ways that she can buy games for them, because they don't have much money. They, it's the cheapest possible way. You can walk into CEX, buy a handful of decade-old games for a tenner, and keep some kids entertained for weeks. You know, so I think that a lot of times determining why something is successful requires perspective outside of what your own demographic might be. So another example of that is I just got a hate comment that every bone in my body wants me to call the person stupid because they are, but I try not to. Saying, one guy commented being like, I don't know why this guy gets hate when all he does is just buy games and talk about games. It's a valid point. And somebody went, oh, it's because he's boring. It's like, okay, you've commented that on a video with 350,000 views and over 10,000 likes. Have you ever even fathomed what 300,000 people looks like to stand in front of? Or 10,000 likes? If 10,000 people made the conscious decision that they liked that, it's the main character syndrome. It's the inability to understand perspectives that are not your own. If one person thinks you're boring but 10,000 people like you, cool, fair trade-off. You know, this is the same thing with CEX. It's that while people that are so used to buying digital stuff are under the impression that that's just the way that everybody functions, it really isn't. People buy stacks of DVDs. The proof is in the pudding. The fact that, for example, somebody the other day said that Blu-rays sell really badly and all that sort of thing, which isn't true when you look at the fact that every CEX in the country often has 500 to 1,000 Blu-rays in at any given time. For them to have gotten there in the first place, they have had to have been bought first-hand at some point, sometime, you know? And there's always stock turning over, there's always new stuff coming in. CEX makes, every CEX store makes thousands of pounds per day. Per day. Their CEX, people joke and say that like people like me keep CEX above ground. We know CEX makes so much money that is actually redonkulous. They have no competition, and the only way that CEX goes under is if time does that. For example, say another 2 or 3 console generations when we're completely digital only and truly nobody actually cares anymore about physical discs because there are so many generations. Like, it's okay, let's liken this to like the way people talk about politics, where people are like, oh, it doesn't matter if old people are racist because they'll die out and then all the racists are dead. You know, it's the same thing with physical media, is that if generally people that enjoy physical media are on the older side, once we're all past it and dead, then yeah, the stores that are all about physical media go under. But smart businesses pivot and figure out ways. CEX pivoted just recently by, I think, starting to take figurines and Warhammer stuff because there's money to be made there. Smart businesses will always figure out a way to continue to be successful. But yeah, CEX does so much money, so just crazy amounts of money. Businesses of that level have crazy budgets. Trust me, crazy budgets. Anyway, that's that one. Here's an interesting one for people that are interested in the more business side of TikTok. So yesterday, I did the 2 videos about trading in my Xbox and DVD collections, and they both banged. One of them did 350,000 views, the other one did like 220. Here's how much money I made on TikTok from those videos yesterday. Once it loads, you're looking at the number there where it says 12.9. £195 on TikTok yesterday. So I made £100 selling them in on a voucher, and then the content created from said videos also made £200. And that's on TikTok before, obviously, the YouTube one's factored in. Whereas my usual daily on this account is like 30-40 quid or so. Will Ford says, why do you prefer Blu-ray when it comes to replacing DVDs? It's just better, isn't it? This is a objectively measurable thing. What software do I use for video editing? So I use DaVinci Resolve. I use the paid version because it's quicker, it has all of the features. I prefer DaVinci Resolve over Premiere Pro because I dislike subscriptions. I very much would prefer to pay. I'd rather pay a lot for something once than some for something forever. I don't like car finance. I don't like I don't like any subscriptions really. If I can just pay once and have it be done, I try to do that. Yeah. So DaVinci, I think it's £300 or £400 as once, and you've got it forever, no matter what features they add. Whereas Premiere Pro can be so expensive. I swear, right? I had to go full Karen with Premiere Pro once because I tried to cancel it, and they're like, "Oh no, you're in a year-long contract." I'm like, "Okay, when does it end?" He's like, "Oh, in a month." I was like, "Right, okay." So a week before that was over, I got in contact again, being like, "Right, cancel it. It ends next week." And they're like, "Oh, can we convince you to stay if we give you 3 months for free?" And I'm like, "No, cancel it." But like, what if we give you 3 months for free and then cancel it? It works out the same, except you get 3 months for free. I'm like, whatever, so long as it ends up cancelled. After those 3 months go by, it still wasn't cancelled, and they charged me again, putting me onto like another year-long contract. So I go full Karen mode through the thing. I'm like, "Bro, I spent hours on the customer service line trying to convince you to let me cancel the bloody subscription. Just do it." There's a reason why Adobe have lost a lot of business over the last few years through Photoshop and Premiere Pro, and it's because a lot of people do not want to pay the crazy subscription fees that their suite of features now has. And DaVinci's great. Granted, I think my PC crashes a lot because it's too slow, but DaVinci's great. I can't wait to see how strong my new PC is going to be with DaVinci. That's going to be a thing for sure. Ventilation on that Series X. Now, this is an interesting one because people talk, whenever I show my setup and things like that, people always comment on the ventilation on my consoles. Notice how they're all running deadly silently. They're all placed very purposefully. They all have enough space. They all don't get too hot. They're all perfectly fine. Generally, when people talk about the ventilation on consoles, in my comments specifically, they aren't aware of where the vents on the machine is. For example, people who say about the ventilation on the Series X because of how flush it is with the top and the bottom, there aren't fans on the top of the bottom. There's no intake, there's no exhaust, so it doesn't matter if it was in contact. And technically, it isn't in contact in the top because there is a lip that recedes. That's why if you look on the far right, even though it's dark now, the Nintendo Wii is a bit clipped up and above because, again, the back of it, there's more space than in the front of it. The vents on the PS5 are in the front and the back, and the vents on the Xbox are on the bottom and the sides. So it's just perfectly fine. It's been years. It's all good. So in this video, I talked about how I upscale my PS2 and my various different bits of tech. And this dude asks, what's the best way to connect a PS2 to a new TV? It's in my opinion, it's the RetroTink. Any of them will do. I think I've got the 5X, I think. But yeah, that one. How do I rate using the hue light with an OLED? Isn't it distracting? Like, OLEDs are best for the black, and the lights behind aren't taking a little magic away of the OLED. No, because the way that the Philips hue light work is if something is black, it outputs nothing specifically to not mess with immersion. If I could demonstrate that, I would, but it's dark, and I don't, unless... No, that's not a good example either. Isn't that pretty, though? My desktop just cycles between random different pictures. But yeah, if it was a dark screen and there was black around the edges, it would output no colour at all. There'd be no light specifically for that reason. They thought of that, and it's just perfectly fine. Here's another common one. It's time you invest in sound quality. Get yourself whatever those all are. Honestly, I don't need it. I am sitting less than 6 foot away from a 77-inch TV, so I feel like it's just perfectly fine as it is, you know? If I was in a much larger room and I was sat much further away, like maybe in the living room it would be a good idea because we're sat way further away. But if I stand in the middle of my room, if I just stand up from where my feet are currently planted, I could touch that screen. I know that it probably looks a bit further away on camera than it actually is, but it is like 2 footsteps away. I'm really close to that screen in reality. So no need for that either. What do I do with the old DVD versions of films that I replace? They get stacked up behind my sofa and then taken to CEX when there is a substantial amount of them. I would have to put them in alphabetical order, says Nikki. They are in alphabetical order, but first they're rated by genre, so it goes left to right, so top shelf, left to right is horror, and then halfway... sneezed. And then halfway into the second shelf down is still horror, and then it switches to superhero stuff, going all the way across, and then it becomes action stuff, then it becomes like your thrillers, and then your martial arts, and then into family stuff, then into kids stuff, then into comedies, then into kids stuff, then into just miscellaneous along the bottom. And within each genre, it is alphabetized. It would be a lot easier for finding things if it was alphabetized regardless of genre. That's true. And to be fair, I've been tempted to do that. In fact, with how many things I'm replacing, it probably would make sense to do that, because already the orientation of things has already had to change from when I first put them in there. But yeah. It is now 2 a.m. Today's been a good day. Ruby's been perfect. And I think I'm off to bed. See you guys in a bit.